Hello and welcome to day 8 of 100 Days of Chat. Today we're answering the question, do I really need to update my software? Yes you do. Oh, wait, you want to know more? Okay, just this once. I'll break it down for you. At its core, an update is a piece of code that changes the way that your program or application runs. You may have seen updates to your software that runs on your computer. You may see updates on the firmware that runs on different pieces of hardware you operate, such as printers, TVs, or Blu-ray players. Or you may have seen updates to apps that run on your phone or tablet. Now, these processes of updating may be a little bit different, but the core concept is the same. There's either a problem that needs to be fixed or a new functionality that the developers want to add that didn't exist when the program or application was originally released. One of the primary reasons for updates is security. When developing software, programmers do their best to identify any sort of weaknesses or vulnerabilities, but just because they try their best doesn't mean they're going to catch everything. Furthermore, there can be new exploits and new tactics that are used against the software that didn't exist when the programmers were originally developing it. Because of these new exploits or newly revealed exploits, it is important that programmers manage their software and release updates in order to protect your software against these vulnerabilities. If you don't update your software, you're leaving yourself exposed to these vulnerabilities. Hackers and nefarious actors know that many people don't want to spend their time installing updates, so they will actively seek out old versions of software that are connected to the internet that they can exploit using these known vulnerabilities. Furthermore, hackers know that in the enterprise space, many businesses are unable to update their systems or unwilling to go through all the expense and time of doing so. Another common reason for updates is for new functionality or compatibility with new hardware. Even if security isn't a concern with the software that you use, it can still be beneficial to update your software so that you can have a seamless experience with new hardware or software. Old and outdated software might not be compatible with newer devices that you may purchase or desire to use down the road, and therefore it can be a more cumbersome process to get new devices to work with old software if you aren't keeping up with your updates. Further, it can be beneficial to update your software in order to gain functionality that did not exist at the time. For example, a banking app might have a simplified sign-on process that makes it quicker where you don't have to enter in your password every time, but you may lose out on this functionality if you haven't updated your app. Updating your software can also simplify the troubleshooting and tech support process. For example, whenever you reach out to tech support, one of the first questions they'll ask is whether or not your system is updated. Now, this may or may not be able to solve the problem, but if every time you go to tech support to ask for help, they ask you to spend hours updating every piece of software that you have, this process will become cumbersome and tedious. By regularly updating your software and applications, you can ensure that problems that would be solved by just simply updating become problems that you don't even notice, and then the ones that you do notice, you can ensure that updates are not going to solve the problem that you have, and you can get straight to the real sort of troubleshooting and fixing the issue. Finally, reliability is also a key factor that can encourage you to update your software. Software developers try their best to test their software under extreme conditions and with a variety of hardware in order to make sure to guarantee the best experience for the users. However, many software development teams have a limitation on the amount of time and money that they can spend towards testing, and therefore they can never truly test out the piece of software in every single instance. It may sound simple to test an app that works on a phone, but when you consider the amount of work that goes into it, it's a lot less straightforward. For example, you have to start out by making sure that you're testing on Android devices as well as Apple devices. But furthermore, if you think about all the phones that your friends and you use, there are multiple different generations of Apple phones, as well as hundreds, if not thousands, of different brands and configurations of Android phones out on the market today. Even if you only assume that the users of your application are using the top 10% most popular phones out there, that still can result in hundreds of different devices, which can make it an enormous task to try and test on all of these different platforms. And like I say, the best way to learn and test is through trial and error. And so these software developers are going to learn a lot more by just putting out the software and allowing users to try it, and then waiting for them to report the issues that they see. However, the software developers have to retroactively fix the software and release these updates to make sure that it works the best on your device. Even though your software might run super fast when you first download it and install it, over time your system might change, or your requirements might change, or the other applications that you have running might change, and these can interfere with the way that your software works. Therefore, it can be important to install updates even if you don't see a problem at the time, because it can prevent issues from happening down the road. For example, let's talk about a game that takes up 4 gigabytes of RAM in order to run. Now, a software developer might release a patch that simplifies the way that it loads textures and therefore reduces it to 2 gigabytes of memory to run rather than the initial 4. However, if I'm running a computer that has 8 gigabytes of RAM and I'm not running anything else, that 4 gigabytes of RAM that it takes doesn't really matter to me, and I won't notice any slowing down, so I won't have a need to update. However, down the road, maybe I install a music app and I start listening to music while I play my game, and that takes up 2 gigabytes. And then I also have my email open, which also takes 2 gigabytes. And then I also want to run my instant messenger, which takes 2 gigabytes. Well, now I've got 6 gigabytes of RAM being used by my other programs, and my game is taking 4 gigabytes for a total of 10 gigabytes used, and I only have 8 gigabytes available. I will start to notice stuttering and slowing in performance, and I won't know why. If I had updated, the 4 gigabytes that my game had used would be reduced to 2 gigabytes, and I wouldn't notice a decrease in performance. But because I didn't update when I didn't see a need to, it meant that down the road I ran into performance issues. Now, you might not realize that these updates can solve that problem, and I might just say, oh, I guess I can't listen to my music now, or I guess I have to close my instant messenger. And that would work, but if I had just kept on top of updates, I would have been able to use the computer just how I wanted and not have to worry about it. So that's all well and good, you say. I understand that I need updates, but I just really don't want to deal with updates. Well, in that case, there are some solutions, but I will advise that just because you're avoiding updates doesn't mean that you're going to be avoiding hassle. One common way to avoid having to deal with updates is to use cloud-based services rather than software that runs on your computer. For example, consider the difference between Microsoft Word and Google Docs. Both services allow you to perform word processing tasks, but the main difference for our purposes is that Microsoft Word requires updates, whereas Google Docs doesn't. Well, kind of. Here's what I mean. Microsoft Word is a piece of software that you download to your computer and install, and it runs locally on your computer. When you're editing a Word document, that program is running on your hard drive, and it is entirely local to your machine. If you don't have internet access, you can still use Microsoft Word because Microsoft Word runs on your computer itself. Although you can see the document being edited on your computer, that document is actually being stored on Google servers, and the application is being run from Google servers. Because of this, whenever there are changes or updates, Google does the updates to their own servers, and therefore it is a seamless transition for you. You might connect to Google Docs today, and then connect to Google Docs tomorrow, and overnight there was an update applied, but you won't be able to notice the difference unless it changes the functionality of the program. Well, that sounds great. I don't have to install updates, I don't have to manage it, I don't have to worry about it. What's the catch? Well, first of all, one of the requirements of Google Docs is that you are online. Now, there are ways to enable offline editing and access the program offline, but at some point you have to connect to the internet to validate the software or, in theory, to apply any updates that have been made by Google. Furthermore, you don't have the choice as to whether you install the updates. Sure, I encourage everybody to always install new updates, but sometimes you may run into an update that either causes the program to not work or work in an unintended way. If this is the case, you have the option of either rolling back the update or just reinstalling the software from scratch and only updating to the point where it works. Unfortunately, with a service like Google Docs, if it ceases to work with your computer, either due to hardware limitations or conflicts with other software, there's nothing that you can do to revert to a previous version. You're stuck with using the newest version, and if it doesn't work with your hardware, then you're out of luck. Now keep in mind, cloud services can be helpful and allow you to avoid updates, but they only currently are supported in certain settings. If you need an Office suite, you can check out the G Suite of products, Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Slides, and so on, and those are all fully functional cloud-based solutions that won't require you to update. Furthermore, there are certain streaming platforms such as Netflix and YouTube, which you might be familiar with, and they all run as a cloud-based service, and so you don't have to update them. So what's the takeaway? Well, there's two things that I want you to take away from this video. First of all, if you're using software that runs locally on your device, whether it be a computer or a phone or a TV or a Blu-ray player, I would encourage you to always install the latest updates. If those updates fail or cause your program to not work, then you can roll back and try and figure out what's going on and maybe contact tech support and determine what the problem is. But unless that's the case, I would highly recommend you to be using the latest version of the software. If you don't want to worry about updates, then you should turn on automatic updates, because that is a process that will make it quick and painless, and often they have options for scheduling it during the middle of the night or times where you're not using your device. But if you truly can't stand updates and you don't want to manage the versions of your software, I would encourage you to seek out a cloud-based provider for those services, because those services will not require you to install updates manually. I just wanted to add this quick note for those of you who have been watching the series. You might notice that I edited down this video and tried to condense it into a much more easily digestible format. If you like this format, feel free to give the video a like or let me know in the comments that you prefer this, or if you want me to go back to the primarily conversational based approach, I'm happy to make more videos in that style as well. Just let me know which style you prefer. Anyways, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to leave it a like if you found this content helpful, and go ahead and subscribe if you're interested in seeing more content down the road like this. And as always, thanks for watching. Alright, so I've got a serious question for you guys. I need you to pay attention. Think this one through before you answer. Top button. Should it be buttoned? Or should it be unbuttoned? I've had someone who I respected tell me that when I wear my top button buttoned and I'm not wearing a tie, I just look silly and there's no point to it. But I don't know, I think it looks pretty nice like this. It's a nice clean look. So let me know in the comments below. Do you think I should have my top button buttoned, or should I go with the cool casual look and have a little bit unbuttoned?